We're going to get to our last story about Elon Musk and Glenn Greenwald. I don't know if you have seen this yet, but we're going to do the Glenn Greenwald part first, and then we'll get to the Elon Musk part. So apparently, Elon Musk was actually just at a deal book summit. He was at a summit. And one of the questions that came up was the issue about the advertisers on X, for Twitter, for those of you not on Twitter. And, you know, we've brought up this issue before, how some of the advertisers are wanting to pull from X because of, you know, Elon has allowed a lot of these videos coming from Gaza to be shown on X. Facebook has, you know, I think they've hidden a lot of these on Facebook, or they removed them, but Elon has allowed it to happen. Now, that being said, we do have to remember, let's all remember now that Elon Musk just came back from Israel after meeting Netanyahu and totally bought into the propaganda that Netanyahu fed him. So don't forget that. So Elon, you know, you never know what he's going to do. Today, he may say, we're all for free speech. Tomorrow, he may say, nope, we're going to take this down. You don't know where he's going to move. He just changes his mind when he feels like it. So Glenn Greenwald was talking about this from a different perspective. The fact that what Elon Musk said during the summit in reference to the advertisers, but also this idea of a subscription model when it comes to mainstream media, and why more platforms are moving towards that. And what does that mean in reference to the advertisers? Let's go ahead and get started with this clip here from Glenn Greenwald.
But when he was asked about the specific problem of having corporate advertisers such as Disney fleeing his platform, this is what he said. Listen to this.
Apology tour, if you will. That this had been said online. There was all of the criticism. There was advertisers leaving. We talked to Bob Iger
I hope
today.
they stop.
You hope?
Don't advertise.
You don't want them to advertise?
No.
What do you mean?
If somebody's going to try to blackmail me with advertising, blackmail me with money, go fuck yourself.
So let's pause there. So that statement from Elon Musk has caused quite a stir, actually, that he told Disney and possibly other potential advertisers to go fuck off, basically, right? So what is interesting, though, is that we do have to remember when Elon took over Twitter, he did explain that Twitter actually was losing money. He said that they're going to have to run ads. So it's not just you can sign up for Twitter Blue or X Blue, whatever we're calling it, and pay like a monthly fee to post longer videos, etc. It was also the fact that they were losing money. So he was trying to find a way for it to break even. And he actually said they needed advertisers. So just keep that in mind when you hear him say what he's saying, right? So now he's saying something different. Just go, you know, F off or whatever. Tomorrow, it could be a different story. Now, a lot of people are applauding Elon Musk for making the statement. But again, like I said, we cannot forget that he just got back from Israel and believed the propaganda that Netanyahu spoon-fed him. Or if he doesn't believe it, he's pretending like he believes it because somehow somebody got to Elon. So just keep that in mind. Let's continue.
But
listen to that silence, just the utter silence after he said that from Andrew Ross Sorkin, from the people in the crowd. And he just stopped and said it. Listen to this.
Go fuck yourself.
But
go fuck yourself. Is that clear? I hope it is.
When that happened, all sorts of journalists who were in the audience or who were watching live went onto Twitter to express their horror and shock. And I think they think that in some way Elon Musk dug his own grave. I didn't see any positive comment at all from a single journalist who works at a major media corporation. Maybe there were some and I didn't see it, but I saw a lot and they were overwhelmingly shocked, horrified and in a way happy that Elon Musk was digging his own grave, because they hate him because he, in many ways, at least, again, not perfectly, we covered a lot of the criticism we had for him on last night's show, but he certainly has refused to take a lot of the censorship orders that almost every other social media platform has been complying with, in part because they don't want to lose corporate advertisers for failing to comply or be.
Let's pause here for just a second. Let me go back just a second and pause here. Let's talk for a second about the corporate advertisers. Even when it comes to YouTube, for those who don't have like a YouTube channel, what people have to understand is that YouTube is all about, is your content advertiser friendly? So if you post a video or a stream, that is what they're really looking for. They're looking to see, are advertisers going to want to feature ads on your videos? So if you have streams that are demonetized, and sometimes these are copyright claims, but if you have streams that are demonetized and it says not ad friendly or limited ads running on it, it is because they don't find that it's safe for advertisers. And for a long time, a lot of these network media companies have depended on advertisers. Tucker Carlson actually let the cat out the bag when he left Fox News, and he admitted that, like, he said, well, for my show, we weren't getting the advertisers. We relied primarily on the subscription model. Now, how will that work for X? Because the reality is Twitter has millions and millions and millions of users, but how many of those users can afford to pay for the subscription? Now, I pay, I think is it $8 a month? I gotta check. I think it's like $8 a month I pay for, whatever. It was Twitter Blue, but that is for me to post video clips longer than 2 minutes and 20 seconds. That's the only reason I even have that. But not everyone can do that. And then there's even, there's another level as well that I think costs more. But like I said, not everyone can do that. But the question is, like I said, if Elon is telling the advertisers to screw off, what is he going to rely on in reference to making money on Twitter? Because they all eventually go this way. Facebook too. How many of you remember when Facebook didn't have ads? Anybody? I'm old enough to remember when Facebook did not have ads. That changed, didn't it? Let's continue.
A lot of the censorship orders that almost every other social media platform has been complying with, in part because they don't want to lose corporate advertisers for failing to comply or be shamed by media outlets and the like. And what's so amazing about this is that if you're a journalist, the thing that you should hate more than anything is any force or any influence that tries to limit your freedom to speak. Your reaction, if you're actually just a journalist in terms of your composition, your comportment, your personality, your mentality, when even thinking there might be someone or something trying to limit your freedom to speak, should be exactly what Elon Musk said there. Go fuck yourself. There was only one time in my entire journalism career when I perceived that somebody was trying to limit what I wanted to say. That was when The Intercept refused to publish my article right before the 2020 election that reported on and analyzed the documents from Hunter Biden's laptop and what it revealed about Joe Biden. And when I saw The Intercept wasn't going to publish my article unless I made radical changes to it that gutted the entire thing so that it was no longer critical of Joe Biden, I quit.
Yeah, let's all remember that. Let's think about what a game changer that article could have been at that point in time. Remember, the reason why Glenn Greenwald left The Intercept is because they wouldn't allow him to publish that Hunter Biden laptop story. So think about what a game changer that could have been. People could have seen that were set for voting for Joe and were like, oh, hell no. Oh, no. We'll never know though, right? Because they wouldn't allow him to publish that material. But Glenn has a point. Like when it gets to the point where they're not going to let you say your truth. This is why some people that are independent journalists Some of them actually started working for mainstream outlets, and then they ran into that same issue where they weren't allowed to speak their truth. Torrin Walker, first journalist that I interviewed on the show, that was like, oh my God, almost 3 years ago now. First journalist that I interviewed on the show, he wrote for outlets like the Huffington Post. And he said, like, the reason why he left was because, again, by the time the editors got a hold of your story, they marked all through it. It wasn't even what you were trying to say. So he went independent. So this is how a lot of people end up going, independent. And then some people just start that way.
And I didn't contemplate or deliberate much at all. And that's because it was an instinct. It was just a reaction. Like, go fuck yourself. You can't tell me what I can't say on my own site that I created that was built on my name and my work. But I would have had that anywhere. That's what Elon Musk did there. You think that's in his interest to do that? Of course not. What went wrong here is not what Elon Musk said. It's so revealing that so many journalists and people who call themselves journalists and work for media corporations are aghast that anyone would dare tell Disney and major corporations to go fuck yourself.
Yep.
When they're trying to limit and censor and control the flow of political content. If you aren't willing to say that to corporations who are trying to limit what you can say, don't bother calling yourself a journalist.
That's right. I think the gentleman that was interviewing Elon Musk had this look on his face like he was surprised that he said that. Like, you can't speak to corporations that way. You can, and you should. You can talk to Walmart that way. You can speak to BlackRock that way. You can speak to Vanguard Group that way. You can speak to any of these companies that way. You don't have to be nice to them. And it's interesting how we just seem to have this perception, particularly in this country, that we're supposed to be nice to corporations, even though they're not nice to us.
And so I think it's very telling and interesting that Musk got to the point where he said it, but I think even more telling is the fact that so many journalists were horrified. We need way more journalists willing to say, go fuck yourself to people who try and limit what they say. The problem is that the people who are hired by these major media corporations and who thrive in them and succeed in them are people who have the opposite instinct. Their instinct is to assuage and serve and placate establishment power, not to defy it. Even though the purpose of journalism is to be adversarial to establishment power, once journalism started getting corporatized, no longer owned by families dedicated to journalism or local communities, but major corporations that have all kinds of other interests besides their media division. And what kind of attributes are awarded to major corporations? People who avoid controversy, who avoid conflict, who avoid displeasing and angering powerful people. That's the corporate ethos. And the corporatization of media meant that that kind of attribute was imported into journalism. And that's why no one almost who works for large media corporations or the media corporations themselves has the courage to say this. They're shocked.
Yep.
They think it's a sign that he's unhinged, when in reality it's just a sign of how cowardly and craven they are.
Very good point there by Glenn Greenwald. And I want to add something about the subscription model. And then I have to show you this clip, another thing that Elon Musk said as well at that same event. When we think about this subscription model, like I said, more people have moved towards that way. I saw this with independent media commentators as well a couple years ago. This is before I started my show. I remember there were certain commentators that said, guys, help me on Patreon, because that was when YouTube was starting to censor like some of the independent media shows and stuff like that. David Pakman made a video about this. I know he crazy now, but he made a show about it. Rational National did, Secular Talk did. Like, this was years ago when they made those videos telling people, like, if you can just contribute to the Patreon. And I think that's where more people are starting to lean towards, right? So like, for example, let's say Breaking Points is a good example. Let's say Breaking Points one day is just completely demonetized by YouTube. I don't think that will happen, but let's say they are. Well, they have a subscription model. Remember, they've said this before on their show. Shout out to everyone who is a subscriber. they have those different tiers where you can sign up as one of those subscribers. I think there's like a lifetime membership is like $1,500 or something like that, right? So even if that were to happen, they would probably still be covered at least somewhat by that subscription model. And that's where even something like network television has moved in that space as well. So I think that these are just important things to think about when we're talking about like advertisers and media and how they all work together, right? So if it weren't for advertisers, if we didn't have to rely on them, you might be able to hear people say some of the things that they want to say instead of just reading from a teleprompter, right? Now, Elon Musk says something else, and you're not going to like this one, though. He said this about unions. You like the first comment, you won't like this one.
I mean, I disagree with the idea of unions, but perhaps for a reason that is different than people may expect, which is I just don't like anything which creates kind of a lords and peasants sort of thing. And I think the unions naturally try to create negativity in a company and create a kind of sort of lords and peasants situation. There are many people at Tesla who have gone from working on the line to being in senior management. There is no lords and peasants. Everyone eats at the same table. Everyone parks in the same parking lot. You know, at GM, there's a special elevator.
Let me pause here for a second. So that's not true. Obviously, everyone doesn't eat at the same table and park in the same parking lot. You don't eat at the same table as the workers. You're the CEO. Let's be real. When we talk about lords and peasants, who's the lord of these companies? That's the CEO, right? Or the board members or the shareholders. They're the lords. Like the employees are not on the same level as them. So it's crazy to me that he would say that unions create like a lord and peasant situation, when I would say it's the exact opposite. The unions are trying to make it so that these employees will get better benefits. Jeez Louise.
Only for senior executives. We have no such thing at Tesla. You know, and the thing is that I actually know the people on the line because I worked on the line and I walked the line and I slept in the factory and I worked beside them. So I'm no stranger to them.
And they tried to unionize at Tesla before too. So this is the thing. Tesla employees have tried to unionize at Tesla and Elon Musk struck it down. So obviously, if you were giving them the benefits and the rights that they deserve, they wouldn't have tried to start a union in the first damn place. Now he's trying to make it seem like he's on the same level as them, but he's not.
And there are actually many times where I've said, well, can't we just hold a union vote? But apparently a company is not allowed to hold a union vote. So it has to be somehow called for, but the unions can't do it. So I said, well, let's just hold a vote and see what happens. The actual problem is the opposite. It's not that people are trapped at Tesla building cars. The challenge is how do we retain great people to do the hard work of building cars when they have like 6 other opportunities that they can do that are easier? That's the actual difficulty.
It's not difficult. You pay the people what they should be paid. You give them the benefits that they deserve. You make sure people can actually take time off without feeling like intimidated. These are the stories that I've read about in reference to Tesla, but it's not just Tesla that does this. You make sure people can take time off and not feel like ashamed for doing so, right? So it's not difficult. It's not difficult to figure out how to keep employees. Sometimes employees don't leave companies. Sometimes they leave managers. That's another thing to think about. But it's not difficult to think about how to keep them. If you are treating them well and you're giving them good benefits, you're giving them what they deserve, and you're not working them like a workhorse, for the most part, the people will stay. People leave because either you're not giving them an adequate raise, you're not giving them enough paid time off, you're hostile towards them. So it's a hostile workplace, which I've heard Tesla is. That's why employees leave.
Is that building cars is hard work and there are much easier jobs. And I just want to say that I'm incredibly appreciative of those who build cars and they know it. You know, so there's I don't know. Maybe there will be unionized. If I say, like, if Tesla gets unionized, it will be because we deserve it and we failed in some way. But we certainly try hard to, ensure the prosperity of everyone. We give everyone stock options. We've made many people who are just working the line, who didn't even know what stocks were. We've made them.
We gave people stock options. Not everybody's interested in stocks, Elon. See, that's the class divide. Remember, he's a billionaire, right? And this not to say that working class people aren't interested in stocks, but what I'm saying is not everyone is. You need to give people a living wage.